pioneering civil rights attorney and law professor, a leading advocate for social services and healthcare. She's worked for years to make our world a better place to live for all people. She's our guest today, and she is Sheila Kuehl. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
So, my first question is going to probably be the hardest question of the day,
Oh, dear.
but I'm sure you're ready for it.
Okay, well, we'll see, won't we?
Yes, we will. So, I'm in awe of your work, and so many people are, because you do so much for so many people. And I know that you've done a lot to date. But if you could choose one or two or three things that you've done in your career, what are the three things that you're most proud of so far?
Well, I think they would probably be, I assume we're talking in the area of legislation and not,
Yes.
Zelda Gilroy on Dobie Gillis.
Not yet on that part.
Okay. Well, definitely the bill that I carried that established paid family leave in California. It's the only state in the union that has it, and it just became a part of our disability system, so employees pay like 2 pennies more, but families really get to take care of each other. I also did a bill to establish nurse-to-patient staffing ratios in every hospital, which I'm very proud of because it was getting really out of hand. Nurses were called upon to care for
What was
dozens
it and what
of
did you make it?
patients.
Tell me.
Well, I didn't set the numbers. The
Okay.
health department set the numbers. But we said there had to be numbers, and they had to be based on the studies around the country that showed what patient safety was. So in the ICU, 2 to 1. On the med-surg floors, 6 to 1. But they established the numbers. I just had a bill that said you have to do more about safety. Bill I'm very proud of, protecting students against discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation in all the schools in the state. And actually not just on sexual orientation, but people thinking you must be gay because you're a girl who plays basketball or whatever. And if they discriminate against you in any way, if the school does, then it violates the law. I also carried a lot of bills on domestic violence, which I'm very proud of because we started very early in the movement. So I think those would be the highlights.
Yeah, those are highlights, and they're very important bills. And what has that made possible for so many people? I mean, especially now. I mean, it's so timely, some of what's coming up now. How have those bills changed the lives of so many people?
Well, I get lots of letters and now emails and texts because it's students in school. That some of them said they were carrying the bill in their backpacks in school so that when there was bullying, then the school was doing nothing about it, or actual discrimination on the teams or in classes, they would like whip out a copy of the bill and go, you can't do that. Or their parents would be more cognizant. I think it has, not perfectly, not totally, but done a lot to change the lives of young people in schools, and it's a terrifying time anyway. And of course the suicide rate for teenagers is much higher for gay teenagers because they're just so despondent, they feel so unprotected. I think it's also changed the lives of patients in hospitals to know that their nurse is by law only supposed to be caring for 5 patients on the on the more serious floors, and that makes a big difference. I mean, if you've ever sat by the side of your parent in a hospital, actually Gray Davis signed the bill because his chief of staff, father, was in the hospital. And she came back when the bill was on his desk. He was going to veto it and said, wait. I just came back, and the nurse for my dad has 12 patients and can't get there. I had to stay there all night, that kind of thing.
Well, that's important.
And of course, domestic violence protection, which I've been working on even before I was in the legislature, I think has made an enormous difference. Police take it seriously, the courts take it seriously. Even in family law now, custody matters, it's taken seriously. It just became something that came out of women's experience, and suddenly people said, you know what, this is real and it's wrong. Right. And so I think the law makes a big difference.
It does, and putting it on paper, and I love the story about the kids carrying it in the backpack.
Right.
It really gives value to their life. I mean, there's a law about this. This is important.
Right.
So Sheila, what keeps you so motivated? How do you, why do you do so much for so many people? Why are you motivated to do so much, to change their lives?
I'm really not totally sure. There was a fabulous article in the New York Times magazine where a young man had done several studies that people who did work that they felt was bettering the lives of other people, even in small ways, were more productive at work. And it kind of turned on its head this theory that we do everything for money, or we do everything, you know, for so to please ourselves. And I just feel like either there's some empathy thing in me. I'm not saying that's a really good thing, but I just can't stand injustice. I mean, I'm just telling you truthfully. It sounds really corny, but I just felt this way about the civil rights movement. I felt this way about the women's movement. You know, I feel like a 4-year-old going around going, well, that's not fair. But of course, getting into the legislature to try to make laws to make things more fair, it's just a wonderful way to spend a life.
And it's so great that you are doing it.
Well, I was very, very privileged to do it. I mean, to be elected one of, 40 people in the state Senate out of 37 million people in the state, you have to say, I feel like it's kind of a rare thing, and therefore a lot of responsibility. And also, people don't know the other people that you work with. They think, oh, the legislature, they're all just fools or they're corrupt or whatever. For the most part, my colleagues were also very serious about what they wanted to do, very, very devoted either to, education or health care or health insurance.
Right.
I carried a bill, which we put on the governor's desk twice, to create a Medicare kind of system for California, which Arnold vetoed twice. But just to work with the people who see the value in that, it's really a privilege.
And your passion, your passion can sell bills. I mean, when you believe in what you're doing, it makes a difference.
Well, and also you should love what you're doing and believe in what you're doing. I think that people live longer when they do things that take their hearts,
Brings them their own satisfaction. It's
Right.
intrinsic satisfaction,
Right.
really. So you've done it all. Okay.
Not yet.
Okay,
but
well,
I've
you're
done
going
a
to
lot.
do more. Okay, you were a kid actor. You
It's
did a
true.
little bit. So tell me a teeny bit about that, and then we're going to talk about some of the TV shows that you've done.
Well, I grew up over by the Coliseum in LA, and a guy came around the neighborhood signing kids up for tap dancing lessons at this thing. They called it a studio, but it wasn't, on the weekends, and little drama club kind of lessons. And I did a skit one day with my little drama club, and the owner of the school asked my parents if they would take me on an interview for a radio series. And this was just about at the time of the death of radio, when it wasn't
out
really
the
the
door.
death, but it went to all music.
Right.
And I got the part with a wonderful cast of actors, Penny Singleton, Bea Benaderet, who later was on Petticoat Junction, Gail Gordon, who was on The Lucy Show, Jim Backus, who was on,
Yes.
Gilligan's Island.
Of course.
And I shortly thereafter went on an interview for the first film television series. That was because the movie studios were totally freaking out that television was going to make everybody stay home and never go to a movie again.
Oh, whoa.
So, which I also got and did that series for 6 years. So I was an actor before I was 9.
That's great. A kid actor.
Yeah.
And so tell me about Get Used to It.
Well, Get Used to It. It was a wonderful show that the city of West Hollywood did for almost 20 years. Back in '93, when there was a lot of activity going on about LGBT issues, they asked me if I would host a show, one show a month, with any guests I wanted to bring, just to talk about what the current issues were for and about the LGBT community. And we distributed the show in a lot of different cities around the country, because there are those connections for
Yes.
city channels. And so for 20 years, it became a kind of an oral history of a very vibrant and growing LGBT movement. But we, of course, didn't know back in the day that, if somebody said marriage, we would have said, okay, you must be committed. You're clearly
You're crazy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow, well, you made a difference then. But that's actually coming through now. All the stuff that you did then is now.
Well, but as you know, doing a show, it's sort of different from being part of a movement. It's not like you're doing the agenda or testifying in Congress or whatever, but the communication of issues, when people just tune in and they say, well, it's not dangerous for me just to listen. to this. Nobody knows I'm watching this.
Right.
I think it can be extremely important for just getting the word out. The other thing that made a big difference in the LGBT movement, I think, was coming out. I mean, we were encouraged. I didn't come out till I was 40. It was very scary. You know, I thought my parents would hate me. I thought all my friends would abandon me. Of course, they all knew. I mean,
Right.
you think, oh, they don't know. But it was so liberating and so freeing. But more importantly, people said, oh, well, I knew her already. She was Zelda on Dobie Gillis.
Right.
Maybe I don't hate them all.
Oh.
And so it was a kind of important thing to come out because people already knew you. And then they would have to reconcile, and this person I know is gay, or my third grade teacher, or the nurse that saved my life in the hospital, or whatever.
Or whatever stereotype that they had about
Right.
that group. So you've changed a lot of lives.
You know, you never know.
Just
it's
by
kind of
being
like pay
yourself.
it forward.
Yeah.
You just never know.
And you do it now, and you do it in your life, and you
Right.
did it with that show. And that ran for 17 years?
Yes, Get Used to It ran for 17, 18, almost 18 years. And it was, I mean, it's an amazing history of the movement over the almost 2 decades. You know, we had people on that were writing books. We had Paul Manette before he died, you know, many of the young men who died of AIDS.
Right.
So we have some very good tape. It was tape, I think, then, too.
Well, it sounds like a very interesting show, I'm sure. I'd love to see some of those shows today.
Well, I think the UCLA library is collecting them.
Oh, good.
Because they have a library of television and radio, or television maybe. And so they should all, once we get them all together, they'll all be there.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. Sheila Kuehl leaves an impression in all she does. When we return, we're going to talk about the indelible mark that she's left on Santa Monica. Stay tuned to Let's Talk.
Hey, slow down!
Right next to the library on 7th Street is the Santa Monica History Museum, where history comes to life for the entire family. Enjoy the exhibits, main gallery, the photo archive, research gallery, and much more. Come visit the Santa Monica History Museum, keeping history alive.
Welcome back. Sheila Kuehl, so nice to have you here today.
I love being here, Rochelle. Thanks.
You're very welcome. So now I want to talk about Santa Monica. And I know you're a resident of Santa Monica.
I am.
And I also know that you are the founding director of SMC's Public Policy Institute. So let's start with what is public policy, and then tell us a little bit about the Institute. And how did you get involved with that?
Well, there were a couple of people who've been very active in Santa Monica politics. Nancy Greenstein, who's a trustee of Santa Monica College, Judy Abdo, who's a former mayor. Several of the council members had been talking about the fact that there are public policy institutes at the four-year colleges, and they concentrate pretty much all on federal policy.
Yeah.
And as to what policy is, when you have a body that gets together and makes rules, whether it's Congress or in Sacramento, the City Council, the Board of Supervisors, trustees of a college, even a faculty forum, that is public policy if you're not making it for a private institution or a private business. And when you make policy, people have to follow the rules. Why do students need a certain number of credits to graduate? Why do they have to pay a certain amount? All of that is policy. And they were interested in maybe a public policy institute that would be in a two-year college. There is no such thing in California. So we established the Public Policy Institute at Santa Monica College. We asked Richard Tavaldrin, who's a professor at the college, and some of his colleagues designed a curriculum so that students could take a group of classes and earn an AA degree in public policy, or a smaller group of classes and earn a certificate in public policy. And we got it approved by statewide in Sacramento, and it's the only community college that has such a program. And I wanted this to concentrate on undergraduate education and community education, which is what community colleges do and what they're about. The other difference here is that we talk about local policy. And I don't mean just Santa Monica, like things that are happening in Santa Monica. I mean issues that are settled locally.
Right.
Like Sacramento, I don't know if you've heard about realignment. They're now wanting certain prisoners to be kept in the county jail system instead of statewide prisons. So that's a policy now in local government. Land use, environmental protection, even the stuff that we do locally about the ports, the death of redevelopment money and what we're going to do about that, affordable housing, social welfare, child welfare. These are all local issues that are overseen by the county or the city. So that's what we focus on. And every 2 months I do a community forum, invite the community to come and listen to and participate over a whole hour's time in a discussion about a local government issue.
So they can actually give input. It's like a public hearing format, or
No,
how do
it's
you
not
have
a public hearing because the people on the panel are not making public policy, but they're people who have been engaged in making public policy.
Oh, I see. Okay.
For instance, the week of May 13th of this year, we're doing a week-long set of programs primarily for students and faculty, but we're doing it through the Public Policy Institute on all of the issues that affect urban youth. And the community forum, the night of May 16th, is going to focus on foster youth. So I have Holly Mitchell, who's an assembly member, who chairs the select committee on foster youth in the assembly. A woman who's done extensive research at USC, Wendy Smith, who's written about older foster youth and what happens to them when they age out of the system, and a young man who is a foster youth and is about to age out. So that'd be our panel. And we have an hour discussion with them, and then the audience for an hour discusses back and asks questions, and it's very
Engaging.
interactive.
That's great. I mean, so people get to say what they think and maybe even talk about their experiences, and then what do you do with that information?
Well, nothing really. It's not about making policy. I want people to understand what it means to make policy, what goes into it, what are the considerations, what are the conflicts. It's very educational, I think, for the community, and that's really my aim for these bi-monthly community fora.
It gives the community an opportunity to have a part in it, and also you get to hear what the community has to say about it.
Right, it's about community education. I mean, really, we do value the input, but it's much more about the community learning something and asking questions so that they can make certain that they get it. You know, they don't know, for instance, that the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach are two separate things, and that they've never worked together before the way they are working now. So we brought people from the ports to talk about it. Why is that important to Santa Monica? Because everything you buy
Goes through the port.
practically coming in through the ports.
Yeah.
Somebody's got asthma all along a corridor so that you can buy a pair of shoes. You know, I mean, it's very important to understand